And we're live.
Are we now?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
We even have some people waiting for us. That's so nice of them.
YouTube isn't live.
YouTube should be live.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So, anyway, hi everyone. This is iBookBinding's live stream, and we asked Friedrich Sommerfeldt to join us today, our news guy and researcher, because well, we will talk about some news, and also Friedrich had some things to share with us. He wasn't able to share last time. Also, Pavel has some things to discuss related, connected to Tolkien. Pavel, you are so far away. We almost can't see you.
I'm so sorry. This is the first time that I'm joining you from Belgrade, not from a cafe, not from a hostel, not from a friend's place, but from my own flat. I only moved in yesterday, so everything is very, very new. Not even a single plant so far.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you'll fix this situation pretty promptly.
First things first, yeah.
So congrats on that. I also had some things to show. I got some stuff as usual, because well, that's what I do. We'll see how it goes, and yeah, whatever. What should we start with? Should we keep
Let's
Tolkien for
let's
later?
start with one of the pieces from Friedrich, and then me, and then you, and then Friedrich, and so it goes.
All right. So I guess I start by an explanation. And then I'll share my screen. So last time we talked about my little adventure of visiting the Frauenfeld book fair. And by just looking at at the photos I took during that time, I basically rediscovered that I also went to a pretty interesting library called the Zitterwerk in Switzerland also, and in St. Gallen. And this library has an interesting approach to ordering their books. As far as I know, they have two libraries, and one we visited, which contains about, I think, 25,000 books, at least in their database. I don't know off the top of my head how many books are in this one room I want to show. And yeah, so now I can just share my screen. So the Zitterwerk is an art library focusing on I want this one. So it's an art library with a part a material library, which we can see parts of here in the background. These are like drawers where you have different sorts of materials collected, like different shells or leather, types of paper, ceramics, emice, like just a lot of materials. I think like 2,500 different objects of materials and or examples of certain materials, and then like these 25,000 books or so. And the idea is the concept of a dynamic order, by which they mean that these books especially the books, aren't ordered as you would have it in other libraries, like by topic or author. They're just basically pre-collected to fit a certain overarching topic. In this case, it's art and design, a lot of architecture. So basically books on topics that go pretty well hand in hand with this aspect of a material library. And in this picture here, we see the desk, or one desk rather, which is placed in this library, and a small camera, and I think also a scanner at the same time, which scans the objects placed on this table, and which gives, you can make it out a little bit here on the screen. I'll show more images a little bit later. So this camera scans everything that is placed on this desk. Everything has like this, like a sort of magnetic label added to it, so that the computer can scan those labels and put every object that you placed on the table into a digital database. And this database, if you save this desk setup, can be saved and accessed online. So we could theoretically access every saved setup of the desk from our homes. And one idea is that these collections then have certain descriptions, certain tags like keywords, so that you can go into those. And for example, you want to write a paper or so on a certain aspect of architecture. And then you can check this database for books on architecture, certain materials that go hand in hand with architecture, and those desk setups, which would link you to, again, different materials and different books other people used to do similar research than you did. So you would go out of the bibliography that you have at the end of a lot of books and just go by the connections other people drew on these topics. And
sorry, and those
yeah,
are not just books, right? There are also some kind of related objects on the table, yeah. And I didn't quite get who curates these setups. Are those setups by actual researchers, or are they done by librarians? How often do they change? This is a very fascinating setup. Never seen anything like it.
So as far as I know, the library is comprised of researchers, librarians, and artists who work there. I think you can also, I mean, the space, let me see if I can find a good picture. Yeah, this is a picture of the whole setup. And there's one staircase here and another staircase about here-ish. And you have like, I think it's 25 meters wide, the whole thing, maybe a little bit more. And then these two floors with 5, what's it called? 5 boards each,
bookshelf.
basically. Well, 5 boards in each bookshelf.
Mm-hmm.
So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, which is not visible here, you have like this large tower, basically, where you can access the materials. Is there a good image of the... Yeah, here you can see like these drawers for materials. It's one side, and then it goes around this corner, here to even more drawers with materials. And since the space is limited, it's at this time pretty hard to enter new materials into the or new books into this library. They have like a second library on the same campus basically, but it's not added into this, or at least not in this, it's not connected in the same way as this library, because another aspect of this library, as I wanted to show you, is with these, there are two scanners, one on the bottom floor and one on the top floor. And each night, this scanner scans the whole 25 meters of these bookshelves and checks the position of each book. So you don't have to put the book back in the place where you took it, but you can put it anywhere else. And each night it scans the position of each book. It's not perfect. So sometimes, because really thin books can get mixed up, so maybe it wanders like one or two positions in the digital setup. Like when I looked for a couple of books, there was like a margin of error of like maybe 20 centimeters at times. But also if these books are used during the day and people put them in another place, then you might have a hard time finding them because they already changed their position.
It would be interesting to see some research on the migration of books on the shelves.
Yes, yeah. I mean, basically, I guess, could you do this? I don't know if this process is safe, but I mean, you could start today, let's say,
Yeah.
and then check in each week or so, or if you want it to be precise every day, for like 3 or 4 books where they're going, and maybe even if they're added into a new collection during this time. So yeah, so you also have like a couple of other work desks there, but especially interesting is this one desk that scans the books and materials also. Here are 2 screenshots from the digital layout, which we will check in a couple of minutes. Yeah, so this concept is, they call it dynamic order, which is really interesting. So here we are in the digital version. As you can see, there are 26,000 books roughly checked in, and about 2,500 materials and 750 collections at this time. And I took it upon myself to like check for some books. Unfortunately, there isn't too much on bookbinding, but I think one was in book art. And so there's a bunch of stuff on book art. And
well, I like how it generates a bookshelf there.
yeah, so you even have like the spines of the books. So when you're going, when you're checking for a book, you can look out for the spines. And as I said, like it might look a little bit different in reality, since sometimes they switch places. And in this overview here, you can see the complete, let me check, we are in the way.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is such a simple idea, and yet it works so well. In most libraries, if you have a catalog, what you see is the cover of the book. And yet when you look for it, you look for the spine.
Yeah.
So
So, and here you have like the current position, linear meter 7.5, shelf B. So these are like, the shelves are A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. And you get a visual marker of sorts, which tells you where it is, but also on the bookshelves in real life, you have like these markers for the ABC and the linear meters also. So it's a system which basically works both ways, or you can check it digitally and then go back in the physical world and check out those books. And unfortunately, I didn't note which book it was, but I found one book earlier which had a note that it was at the bookbinders. So
for
like
repairs.
I guess, which was quite interesting, but I don't know what it was called. It was also something in the realm of book arts.
I wonder if this is an original idea. I'm really surprised that I've never seen anything this useful in a bookshop. You know, in a bookshop, even if you have a catalog, even if you know where the book is, you don't know what it looks like. They never show you where it is this precisely. I think this is the future, and a very near future at that.
Well, I guess one of the reasons is that bookshops usually wouldn't spend time on putting RFID marks on each of the books, because well, that's some process. But there were a lot of discussions of marking all objects around us, and in creating this Internet of Things or whatever with RFID marks. I don't know, including milk in the fridge, so that the fridge would know if there is milk or not. That's the similar process, but still it has to be done. And
somehow it hasn't happened. I used to read about it 15 years ago, it looks like distant future.
Well, I hope it isn't like with fusion power or something.
So, and for example, if we just look for paper, then we can go to the materials tab. Or like we go here down paper. Now we come to a point where there are still some, let's say, points that they could work on. We are in the English interface, but all the objects are still named in German, which is kind of unfortunate. But then we could go, for example, to papyrus, and we would see that where the drawer is where you have papyrus, then you can click on it and see all the other materials in this drawer, which is tapa, which is a type of paper which is made from a mulberry tree.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, and the name comes from the tapping, like hammering the material to make the paper. And
it's made out of bark, if I'm not wrong. Yes.
Doesn't wait. No, it says that it's like the inner part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just as an example, just to look for a material, and then you can have these in a collection. And unfortunately, it doesn't appear that from books, usually you can find collections, but in this case, from the materials, you can't find collections where it's in. And if we look for collections, I had one, I think, under, did I just look for architecture? No, but let's say, like, here's one from mid-October under the tag architecture. And we can see everything present in this collection. So we have the materials that were used. We can also open this here. And takes a while to load, especially with bigger collections. And one thing that I also at least couldn't find at this point was getting a display of all these things in like one list. So if you have, I mean, in this case, it's you have a good overview, but I had another collection earlier today where the whole display was just cluttered with books, and you can drag these around to like look for books that that are buried underneath others.
Like looking through a drawer full of stuff.
Yeah.
That could be fun too.
So, but I think it's pretty genius concept, especially if you're, I mean, you can use this library even if you can't visit it, because like maybe you have a library close to you and where you can check out books or so. So maybe you're not able to find all the books that are present in this library, but you have a starting point. And you can find new references, and then you can check out or can check for books and maybe buy them or check if a library near you holds them. And yeah, even with materials, you can start your research here and go in and check for certain materials online and try to find or in other books and try to find like a use for them or how they connect to others. And I think there are parts of it, you have like this ability, it appears, to take notes on certain objects. Like when I go to this book, here are notes. So here you have a couple of notes. And what I would like to see, I guess, that people could start taking notes of their own, like how they came about this collection, what use it was, so that you have more references and more like that you maybe see the context and like some of the thought patterns that went into these collections.
You know what I find amazing, that this new approach to cataloging appeared in St. Gallen, in the very place where the great library of the monastery of St. Gallen was, the library that preserved so much of our antique, ancient Greek and Latin legacy, and also one of the places where the library cataloging as we know it actually began. It was one of the very first monasteries where they employed not just lists of books, because they had so many, not like 500, but they had thousands, and modern cataloging begins in places like this.
That's really interesting. I mean, I had the opportunity to visit this library also, but we spent so much time in the Zitterwerk that like, okay, our time is done here for today. And we just, I guess we started just experimenting a little bit with this library, like looking what's there and can I find a book on a certain topic. Like I'm working on a project with a Zettelkasten. I don't know if basically this word is being used in English also, but it's like these drawers where you have like a bunch of little notes that you take on certain topics, and it's a tool in a sense. And I started working on one of these, focusing on the book, and it's my current semester project. And so I went to the Zitterwerk and just started looking for books under like the term Zettelkasten, and found one result. I don't even know, this one is currently processed. So yeah, these books are ones which aren't on these shelves, but maybe on the other part of the library, which isn't like attached to this system. And I think that's because it's a more let's say, traditional library with several rows of bookshelves. So it's pretty hard to add these scanning robots to it. But as far as I understood it, they wanted to check if they can somewhat expand this concept of a library.
Could you talk a bit more about Zettelkasten? I've heard about it as a tool. For example, that's how much of Oxford English Dictionary was compiled, first by a single man, then by a group of people referencing each other's notes. But what is your interest in it?
So my interest with it, as I said, I'm focusing on the topic of the book in it. And my so that was my starting point. And I always, or since a couple of years, I think like since 4 years or so, I wanted to write a treatise of the book, where I would basically was trying to go and check the book for its structure, for its functionality, for its uses, in a almost logical and point by point way. So just let me take a book, one that we saw in another episode. So taking a book and, for example, just trying to understand what are its components. Like you have the book cover, you have the pages, you have the printed word, or not, maybe camera. Well, there are printed words in it. And you have like maybe the thread or some other method of binding the pages together. And one question that I tried to answer was what is essential for this codex shape of book to basically exist. So what I mean, one part was like, what is common to all objects that we would consider books, especially in this codex shape, like we have a cover and stuff like this. And from this point, I checked out different perspectives by, in part, artists, bookbinders, librarians, in part also like book historians, if you want to call them like this. And I wanted to have a tool where I could have an easy way to have references, like quotes, for example. It's in part pretty hard to, if you want to write this treatise, you need maybe you want to use quotes, so you want to save those or at least the a link to where this quote was written. So I would have a single sheet of paper, a zettel, and maybe have a marker on it to where I can find a quote on a certain topic. Like, let's say a bookbinder talking about the in German it's Zweck, like the use.
I don't think we'll help you here.
yeah. I'm trying to let me end this first. Yeah, basically like a bookbinder talking about what is a book supposed to be doing, what's its use. Like it's some people say it's a container for a text, so it's supposed to protect the text over everything else, and every design decision goes under the pretense of elevating the text and the meaning of the text. Same goes for typography, but then you have perspectives which say like, no, a book isn't a container for a text at all. A book is a structure in its own right. So you collect all these thoughts, and then you have these single sheets of papers, and you can draw new connections by placing those against each other with different perspectives, and then taking notes on a new sheet with maybe a sort of compromise or maybe an idea that you have had of your own, like a new definition for the book.
Will you get offended if I ask you why not go digital?
I also work in part in a digital fashion. There's, if you start watching for like for the topic of the Zettelkasten online, there are versions of it that see the Zettelkasten as a physical form, and then some people may want to work purely in a digital fashion. And for that, I use this tool, which is called Obsidian, and
Sure.
it basically
Yeah,
draws a
yeah.
mind map from your notes. So here we have my entry for book, and then I have I mean, it's all in German, so don't bother. But then here's like the point definition. So I could go on here, and here's the definition by the UNESCO, or a definition by Ulysses Carillon, a book artist, or also like just an artist who defined the book as a space-time continuum base or sequence. And so a bunch of definitions, and this is basically my digital sort of Zettelkasten, but more sort of mind map. And if you start looking for the term Zettelkasten online and how to make one, if you want to make a digital one, oftentimes people tell you maybe you want to use this tool Obsidian, which is completely free, and in the pro version, which you would pay for, you could link it between different devices, so you could work on your laptop and on your home PC and on your smartphone, and have it like cloud saved. But to me, it works fine to have it just on one device.
So now that you've worked with both online and analog version, what are your preferences?
So the physical one is still pretty small, but you have the advantage if you want to look at the book in a in terms of a physical object itself. And yeah, if you want to look at the book as a physical object itself and maybe look at its materials, I have like these small cards. Like, let me finish this one again, with marbled paper. Can I here? So different types of marbled paper, just examples as you would have in certain books. Or like maybe I have one of these, like these strips for like we call it Köperband in German, like these bands that you can put on the backside of books while now I'm embarrassed.
Sewing them?
Sewing them, yes.
Tapes for sewing.
Yeah. And or for example, different ways of folding paper, which it's like the lighting is bad, but like here's this standard form which is used in printing, which makes like that each section has 16 pages, stuff like this. So that's and I also want to add at a certain point different bindings in the same size as these sheets, as their own zettel. so as their own entries into this project. So you really can interact with this Zettelkasten in a different way.
So
But
it will be
it's
a
a lot of
fractal Zettelkasten.
Hmm?
It will be a fractal Zettelkasten.
Well, I think
If
at
you
Zettelkasten
if you add more Zettelkasten inside of the original one,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
more
yeah,
inside of them.
yeah, basically, yeah.
So like the Bocca's library, but you go in and there's another one, yeah.
Yeah.
And also this collection would make a great traveling exhibit. I can imagine you giving lectures in schools.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's still like in it's like baby steps. But yeah, I mean, I started this semester, and ideally I will continue this one until the end of my life, because basically it's a tool, and it's a tool that grows over time. And luckily I have the ability to just expand it, because I can make everything myself, and it will change over time. And maybe some of the sheets will be exchanged for different ones, or just it will just be expanded on. I think at a certain size, but I'm not there yet. At a certain size, the digital one might be easier to navigate, because if you add all these links and you have like this standard search function that you can search for different keywords, and here you have to make a separate sheet with like an index sheet where you can look for, okay, where did I which are all the sheets that I wrote on the topic of reading or on the structure of the book, and so on. So I think there the digital version is superior also in terms of really just writing down quotes, like having a phrase or so, just write it down, even if it's like half a page long. And I mean, I also have like this extra step at this point with my physical version, which is that I do all the sheets with a typewriter. So it takes some time, and then you really basically have to get into the mood to like clack 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 ding, clack 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 clack. But yeah. So this is in the works, and it's also in a sense a thing of order and navigating knowledge, and having a tool which is which might result in new connections that you didn't draw beforehand, just by reading certain books.
Projects.
This will be a topic later on today when we review some of our favorite news from this year. So yeah, but that's it from my side. You can continue if you don't have any other questions.
I wanted to add that with the Zitterwerk library, for me the next reasonable move is to use 3D scanning for the objects, because well there are 2D photos, two-dimensional photos of the objects now. I want to touch them.
yeah, yeah.
At least virtually.
And also the textures of the materials. There are now methods of photographing it in certain settings of light that, when combined, give you a normal map, what's called, and you can artificially light it from different side, and you can feel much better what's the difference between that letter and this letter, for example.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly, yeah.
There are things to improve, but all in all, a very interesting concept, and it would be interesting to know if there are any other libraries experimenting with their setups in similar ways or in other ways. And the other thing that it all reminded me when a library collects not only books but also some other objects. It's when we visited the art gallery Garage with Pavel in Moscow almost a year ago. That's insane.
More than a year, I think.
I think it was a year ago.
I went there
No?
too.
No, it was last summer. It was summer. It wasn't in winter. Anyway,
yeah.
So we visited the library and they showed us some artist books. They showed us some books, but also there were some objects that came from the collections of artists and authors and all of that. So it was an interesting mix of books and objects, but usually it's mostly books for libraries. Pavel?
Sorry. It is indeed somewhat similar. I mean, imagine them scanning the archive of contemporary Russian art in that way, or their collection of artist-made books, because you remember those boxes and boxes, and you needed Valera to find anything, basically. And now Valera is not in Russia, from what I hear. So, as so many people. So I don't know. It's a good idea. It's a really good idea. I want to see more of it.
Yeah, definitely. So should we switch to some of the topics Pavel prepared for us?
I have one topic, but let's do that. Yeah.
With multiple objects or whatever.
Yeah.
Are you screen sharing?
I'm trying to. Here I go. Okay. So a couple of months ago, maybe less, there was a really interesting auction on Christie's.
I think it was October or something.
Yeah, I remember us talking about Rings of Power, and I thought to give this as a postscriptum, but we talked and
but it never happened.
So much.
Yeah.
So valuable and important books and manuscripts from the library of Edward R. Lee. At least I think this is how his surname is pronounced. So here he is or was, I'm not sure. There's very little information about him. A distinguished lawyer, a very rich man with a very diverse set of interests in the book world. He's perhaps best known for his collection of early Shakespeare material, of modern bindings, and by modern they mean like 20th century, early 20th century. But
Pavel isn't happy.
Yeah, but for me, the most interesting part of his collection was Tolkien material. I didn't send you the links. Now I did. So if we go to the list of what was sold, and what is it? $4.5 million for the lot, for 200 books. Not bad. You can see that it's very eclectic. He has medieval manuscripts. He has incunabula, early printed books. Here's the Shakespeare that was sold for what? $277,000. Second folio, first quarter, etc. Then if you go down, you start seeing amazing books by Singorsky and Sutcliffe that I want to talk about in the end. And then if you, at some point we get some Tolkien. Let me just insert it here. So Tolkien. So here we go. 4 letters and 3 sets of books. And note that a complete first edition cost to $20,000, and yet a single letter went for over 100. So let's go and see how that works. How can you how can you sell a set of Tolkien books for more than a first edition costs? So here's a first edition in very, very good shape. Those are pretty rare ones, actually. But this is not, I don't think it's the first state. Yes, this is first edition, second state. So when it was first sold, what it, yes, it was printed in 1954, 55, thereabouts. It was extremely popular, and first edition, first states are very rare, as it is with the author who will not be named for her abominable views.
Well, it happens to too many authors. Really.
Yeah.
Finding the first printing of the first edition of the Dune, of Frank Herbert Dune, is also a challenge, or an expensive task, and with many sci-fi authors as well, but not only sci-fi. Sci-fi is what I know about.
Well, interestingly, in this case, about a quarter of the price is in the I forget the English name, the outer covers, the papers.
The jacket.
Yeah, the
jacket.
paper jackets, because the as you can see, those are not in superb shape, but they are here, and this makes it immediately much more rare, and like $5,000 more expensive. But
I think we discussed the topic of jackets with Sophie Vogel, book restorer, a while ago on our podcast, and maybe it was someone else. And there are a lot of issues with them, and with the restoration and conservation of book jackets, and people switching jackets between different books in different dust jackets.
And also
Jocelyn Bergen on YouTube commented that it's called dust jacket. Thanks.
And also a dust jacket is much easier to forge.
Yeah.
That's another problem, because to make a full set of books that look like the original is much more difficult. So anyway, this is the basic option, as they say. Let's go for the better one. So one way to spend more money on your Lord of the Rings books is to buy printer's proofs. And the full set, one of very, very few still in existence, there's like 5 more, went for $60,000. Speaking of,
and as far as I understand, that's not always the issue for a book, that printer's proofs are so much more expensive than the first edition, and but maybe somebody can correct me.
Speaking of typewriters, we can see the labels. Somebody lovingly typed 70 years ago almost, and again, it seems to have been a working set. Note the spines. I think this has been opened. So somebody went through it and read it, I think.
Well, that's what they are for.
Yeah.
For proofreading, proofs.
And,
who could have thought?
I think I also, maybe I didn't share it, but I definitely read about these proof copies when basically the news hit that they were up for sale. And I think I also can tell if proof copies are usually more expensive. I think that's maybe in the case of like of certain books of special interest, and in the case of Tolkien, people are oftentimes interested by how his world took shape and how his imagination took shape. So, and in the case of these proof copies, there are still some errors there. I think like a forward is missing because that's still the proof copy. You didn't wrote it yet. And so it's in part a document of the history of how these books became their current shape, their current versions. And I think maybe there are like also one or two names or words still written differently, and he decided to change them for the real release, maybe because like it was a typo or stuff like this. But it's basically it's a trace of how Lord of the Rings and the whole concept of Middle Earth changed over time, and how he made basically last minute changes, and how much effort and thought went into this. So that's I guess in part why these proof copies are so interesting.
Sure, of course. I also wanted to note, here's another typewritten note about 21S. Can you guess what it is? That's the price. The set went for 21 shillings. Back in the day. I don't know how much it is, because it's like, you know, like Harry Potter money. I mean, a few pounds, I guess. Certainly less than a galleon, but okay, 21 shillings to 60,000 pounds in 60 years. Somebody did real well. Now,
probably these labels were placed at the same time, or at the time of the sale of this proof.
Yes, I think back in the 50s, so very early on, because by the 60s, first editions were already a collector's item. It doesn't say when, but anyway.
Oh, but maybe this in this case it's a price estimation for the real print. It's not for these proof copies. Like in the text description, it appears that about 21.
Oh yeah. Like you're right. That's
the later
that's the
final print run.
That's the price for the original edition. Yeah. So now this thing. I have to know that although
by the way, £1 was 20 shillings.
So a pound and a bit.
A pound and a shilling.
Why not just say that? So again, first edition, second state in dust jackets, $20,000. This set in a very, very lavish binding, and I'll show you more details in a minute. Just $4,000 more. But the thing is, it's a mix and match. It's two of the tomes are from one edition, from first edition, second state, and one tome is from second edition. So what a missed opportunity. These were bound, and we know by the name of the binder, but we know for whom it was bound. It was bound by Esprit, and this is all they say on the side. Full Morocco leather. That's all. That's what they say about the material. But I do like the graphics, so I assume that's Gollum and Frodo and what his name, Sam. These three statuesque figures, I don't know who they are. Maybe you have some idea. They look like popes to me, basically. Uh, and this is probably Aragon. Now let's look through. Now, for $24,000, you don't just get 3 books. You also get a few of the drawings. Again, we don't know by whom. This is infuriating. So again, by Esprit. Esprit is a deluxe shop. They sell cigar cases and I don't know, and books. And all we know is that it was done for them. But it's really well made. I think it is, again, from roughly that sort of time period, probably the 60s. Let me show you more drawings. Yeah, I really like this one. I think this one is amazing. Just see how his cape is done. I really like how textures are changing between folds. This is minute work. This is really, really well done. And not too many details. It's still very graphic. It's not about being realistic. It's more about giving the feel of the person and of his clothes.
Interesting work between the leather inlays and line tooling.
Yeah. I think here we have some tooling too, and imagine doing those lines on his staff.
Yeah.
Lots of work. And then there was one with a dragon. Yeah. Even more fun, even more textures, even more lines. And again, just think about those things coming out of its head.
Yeah.
Probably silver, right?
Yeah. Looks like that.
That's like a shame with digital versions that you can't really get the shining effect.
Yeah, and in places, especially with the scales on his back and his tail, it looks almost like it was printed, but it certainly wasn't. Whoever this was, he knew what he was doing, and I really like the landscape. Perhaps even more than the dragon. The eye just never stops wandering through all the details. It feels 3-dimensional.
And I would probably correct Pavel in any other situation, asking him to use they or whatever. But 60 years ago,
60 years ago, let's face it,
was a he.
it probably was, yes. But I need to grow up. Yeah, you're right. So that's the thing, that I'm really impressed by it. And if anybody knows how I can research bindings made by and for Esprit that long time ago, who could this master have been? This does not look like a work by a nameless person. He probably was known. Perhaps somebody recognizes the style. I don't know. I couldn't find any more information, but judging by the fact that the catalog doesn't say the name, it's probably not as easy. Now, finally,
but it's definitely strange.
Yeah. And finally, the most expensive object in the set. So there are a few letters. There are 4 letters ranging from $20,000 to $100,000. And let's just look at this beauty, the most expensive and certainly the most interesting one. I've heard about it before. It was exhibited like 10 or 15 years ago. It's a letter that Tolkien wrote in between publishing The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So The Hobbit was published something like late 30s, I think, early 40s, I'm not sure, late 30s. And Lord of the Rings was published in the 50s. And he worked on the Lord of the Rings for 15 years straight, non-stop. And in that time, he became really, really popular among kids, among British kids especially. And back then, if you liked somebody, you wrote them a letter. Well, that's what you did. And many of those kids struck a real friendship with Tolkien. These two girls wrote about a dozen letters to him and received as many answers. And this letter is 10 pages long. Just imagine that. Writing to, say, J.R. Martin is his name, yeah? And receiving 10 pages of handwritten text. Unbelievable. And this is two girls
Well,
of
I can
10
easily
and 12, I think.
imagine Martin doing that, especially as he's not in a hurry to finish the how it's called.
Yeah,
Perhaps that's because he's writing all those answering all those fan letters.
just fan mail. Too busy. People want to know.
And it's not just any old letter. It's interesting for its contents because he goes on quite a few tangents while explaining the nature of different alphabets in his world. I really like how he starts talking about runes in general. Let me try and find this place. Oh, here, yes, he writes really well. Here in the middle, there were lots of runes. He says, like Iceland, in Iceland and Scandinavia, the English runes were the best. And in England, the runic alphabet became improved and elaborated. Of course, it was the best. How could you think any different? So for quite a few pages, he goes explaining what were the runes in Europe, how they worked. He gives this full set. Almost full set. It continues on another page with their names and what they meant. For example, here's an interesting one. I is ice, and this is one of the rarest words in all of the old English corpus. There are like 4 times that they use this word, and yet when you look for cut examples of runes, you find it all the time, because common people thought a lot about ice, while monks were probably living in much warmer surroundings. So that's that. Here they are. Miss Layla Keane and Miss P. Kirk. Both misses were not even teenagers at the time. What I also like is where he gives them clues. Where was it? He gives a number of texts in the runes of the Middle Earth. Here's one. Here he doesn't break it into words, so it's really difficult to read. But we'll see other examples. Then he talks about other alphabets, including Dwarvish runes, and this. I really, really like this. Look, look at his handwriting. I mean, he's good. He's so good at it. Wouldn't you like to receive a letter from Tolkien in Anglo-Saxon typography? Then I noticed this space. Yeah. Speaking of jackets, have you got the original jacket or dust cover to your copy? All around the edges, there is a runic inscription. Have you deciphered it? I haven't. Let's do that. So here is the original dust jacket. And indeed, all around it, there is an inscription. It's a bit difficult to read here because it goes up, down, left, right. So I found a late edition where they reproduce it inside, but still, I wanted to show you this. It's nice, right? There's a late edition where the whole text is reproduced the same way up. And actually, there is quite a few words you can read immediately. Word hobbit is certainly one of those. Here's one copy. Here is another, and this is not hobbit; it's hobbiton. We can see the next two letters. But for me, the funniest thing is the more modern words. Perhaps you can find where J.R.R. Tolkien is written down.
Yeah.
Here it is, J.R.R. Tolkien.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
And the single funniest thing is the last three letters of this runic inscription. It's LTD. It's the name of the publisher. It's something limited. So you can even give names of modern capitalist firms in this wonderful script. So, and I think there was one more page one more example of writing in there. Yeah. The last thing I wanted to show you is his Elvish handwriting, because of course. And even two examples. And it says formal and quick. So he could do both. Is it similar to what we see in Rings of Power?
I think basically the formal version. And if we look at the Old English writing, it's similar to the writing they basically invented for the show. So it has like a lot of aspects basically of the Elvish writing and the Old English writing style. Certainly more aspects and free inventions or so, but yeah, you can see different aspects of both writing systems in this.
And you can see that by this moment, he's been writing in Elvish for quite some time. His son and editor cataloged some 2,000 examples, 2,000 pages of Elvish text. So by this time, he's very proficient. I really love this. It gives you this insight into his process. He was a scientist. He was a nerd, a man to my heart. So that's that. I can only imagine the warmth that you get from spending $100,000 for a letter from Tolkien, but I can totally understand it. And that's about Tolkien, but there was one more aspect of this auction that I just wanted to discuss. There were even more expensive books here. In fact, they reached a new record for a contemporary binding. Where was it? I think this. Yes. Well, it's Sangorsky and Riviere. Again, we don't know the names of actual binders, just of the firm. And let's see what almost $200,000 can buy. This is a poem, but by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Although I highly doubt people buying this book gonna read it. And let's
maybe they will put it on their bedside table. And,
coffee table book. So this is this New English romantic style of binding of early 20th century, basically a continuation of arts and crafts movement of late 19th century. So peak Edwardian work with some I am not sure. Some of these are supposed to be semi-precious stones, but most of these are certainly glass paste. So intrinsic value of the materials is probably not that big, and the value is in the work. Again, what dozens of types of leather, very impressive tooling. And I mean, look at those dots. I'm pretty sure every single one was done individually. And also, of course, hand-drawn illustrations. You can see this is not printed. This is hand painted, hand drawn in several styles, just as it was in medieval times. One person did the border, one person did the main scene. I personally prefer the borders.
Same.
Yeah, but
I love the tiny book on the floor.
Who doesn't like
there's a book.
There's a tiny book on the floor.
Yeah.
Indeed, there is. Yeah. Probably a book of poems by a medieval poet. Again, I'm lost for words, actually. To think that somebody did that 100 years ago, that skills were very much still alive, that you could do it in some numbers. This is not this is not unique. And more and on it goes. I'm not sure about the calligraphy. What do you think? I think it's handwritten too.
Yeah.
So it's basically even more expensive than some of the medieval manuscripts, although probably not with as many illustrations inside. But I don't know if somebody is still capable of producing such a tome. Have you heard about such businesses? I'm not sure. A whole book, handwritten with hand-painted illustration, with gilding and everything, and the bookbinding.
So just in terms of handwritten and illustrated, maybe not to this in this style, but if I remember correctly, last year or so, there was a story about someone, I think, writing the complete Divine Comedy and illustrating it by hand, but more like in a modern style, I think. I'm not. not I don't remember every detail of this story. And then there's was this year a story about modern calligraphy for writing maybe just parts of the Bible or the whole Bible as a collection by different artists. But yeah, I think it's also the question of who's interested in this, who's ready to spend all the money for the production. And so is it financially good enough for basically a couple of artists to work together and spend the time to make such a book? And
yeah, that's another thing. I was thinking, so $200,000. Could you hire two artists to make you a book for that kind of money? Would it be enough?
Well, more than
What is
two
it?
artists, because it's at least
Yeah,
three artists for the
and the
book work
binder
and two bookbinding professionals to work on the
and the
binding,
scribe.
because most probably this binding it's at least two-person work. So you need a second person for tooling, because well, this sort of elaborate work usually is done by a separate professional. But yeah, anyway, I guess in the modern world you can find objects with art inside of them and calligraphy. And separately you can find some elaborate bindings, but not really any mix of of these two. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it's
So
definitely. I think you mentioned that, or you guessed that it was an edition. So there were more than one books produced at that moment, and
hmm.
I don't see it happening this way today. So I see it only happening made up on order. Well, if some person wants to have something like that, they pay the money, and then the production can happen. But yeah,
And
not
I
as an
think
edition.
also it's also a question of taste. And I think nowadays we tend to have a taste that might not be more minimalistic, but in a different way expressive or so. So I mean, there are just like a lot of styles nowadays that aren't solely confined, or not confined, but in a way wouldn't reproduce this style. And if you want to reproduce this style, usually you end up with like stuff like facsimiles, and to really reproduce historic books. And I mean, if you wanted to have a modern text in a elaborate style, you might want to have a different approach to this, and maybe the book covers wouldn't be this elaborate but more simplistic, and all the let's say beauty and expressiveness is on the book pages themselves. I mean, there are a lot of different approaches to this, I think. And I mean, in my from my personal
anyway,
taste,
my thoughts are also about the function. Books like that don't have a function in modern world, except for the bragging rights, which is a function. Okay. You know, like Salvata Mundi on your super yacht, that kind of thing. A conversation starter.
yeah. Yeah, sure, costs a lot.
So, Stepan, can I stop sharing?
Yeah, sure.
So that was that.
So should we ask Friedrich to talk a bit more about the news of the past
I
year?
don't know. We have like 10 minutes. Maybe you show us something.
Yeah. Okay, Friedrich. How much stuff did you prepare?
Let me check. One short thing, and basically one thing, just one really short one, and then one we could talk a little bit more about, which would also go into the aspect of preserving knowledge and making it accessible from news that we had this year.
I can probably go through my stuff pretty fast and maybe
Do that.
save some of the stuff for the later, because why not? These books wouldn't go anywhere anytime soon, or these objects. But firstly, I finally got a couple more sets of my corner cutting jigs in steel. And,
In steel.
Yeah, and you can probably hear the clank.
No.
No, we couldn't
No.
hear it.
No, like this.
Yeah, now.
So they're pretty heavy, and compared to the original plastic ones, and it is so much fun.
How did you do that?
You
Were they
have them
3D?
and,
Were they 3D printed?
So they are pretty much the same as the original ones. You can see even the letters there, and the 3D model is the same. So the process is there are several different approaches to that, and I use a company to produce them. So I order them and I send them a 3D model, and then they create they 3D print it with special plastic that burns away when you pour hot metal, liquid metal into the pour.
Oh,
so they create.
so it was cast.
Yeah, so it was cast, and then you get this stuff, and it's a pretty expensive process. And I really wanted to try it myself, but well, you need a proper workshop for that, for metal working and high temperatures and all that stuff. Maybe next year we'll see how it goes. And they are really expensive, so each of them costs something like 100 euros. And
Whoa!
That's a tool that is sometimes ordered in my shop, and well, that's that. Then I got another print from what's happening? Somebody's calling. I got another print from our previous guest, Ellen von Wigland, and I wanted to show it to you because, well, it arrived just a while ago, and there was no opportunity to. So yeah, I'm
unboxing.
Opening the envelope right now. Yeah, so I haven't seen. Well, I probably know what is in there, but because Ellen posted. And so here is the stuff. I have 3 prints in my collection, and
from the same series, right?
From the same series, and if anyone is interested, just check our talk with Ellen, and she talks about line of printing and her process and her career, and so yeah, here is a bit of an illustration of how it was printed and the liner cut and all that stuff. So it's interesting. I like how Ellen organizes all of that, and this subscription of hers, and I think it's a great model, and it would be really interesting also to see if any other printers follow similar principles, but we haven't received any comments on that. Maybe in the future somebody will point us in the direction of other printers doing some similar stuff with subscription programs for their art.
Let me check something. There is,
an example.
A book artist who also studied at the same university as I did.
Yeah.
And I think she and a couple of other artists have like a subscription box. I think this year around it's their 3rd year. So you can, it's a little bit pricey because it's like still at this point a collection by several artists and not just a single print. So I guess like maybe like 10 or 12 prints in one box or so, maybe more. But I forgot her name, but I can check easily because she was also at Frauenfeld.
I can talk a bit more while you're checking.
Yeah. I'm looking her up.
So we also visited Poland last week and had an opportunity to visit the workshop of one of Polish bookbinders, Jacek Tylkowski, and if anyone is interested, there is some stuff, some videos on our YouTube channel and TikTok and Instagram, and he gave me some freebies from the Polish Polish Guild of Bookbinders, and if anyone is interested, I'm guessing it's a template for positioning the bands on the spines of the book, so that you don't need to measure the distance for each book. And when I was making a lot of books, I have drawn this pattern for myself, but well, they had a meetup and printed some of these templates, and he gave me one of them, and also some stuff, some bookish stuff from them, and I have, so some time ago I ordered 2 copies of, I think I've shown them already, but we wanted to talk a bit more about it, but not today. We need more time about. So it's an annual magazine of the Polish Guild of Binders, and there is a lot of fun stuff inside, of course in Polish, but well, luckily I can read at least some Polish, especially if you know the context. But Jacek gave me another one, so I will probably pass it to Pavel when we have an opportunity. So some freebies are coming to Pavel as well, and there is an article by there's an article by Anna Markova, whom Pavel also knows, and her colleague, I guess. So about Polish bindings in the collection of the Moscow State University.
Yes, Anna Markova used to
Moscowskiego Uniwersytetu Państwowego. I think it's
Anna used to work in Moscow State University Library before she transferred to Pushkin Museum.
So something for Pavel as well. Maybe next time I will get something for Friedrich also. I love freebies, but yeah. What else? Also, I got a couple of tools from Dimitris. And this is something we discussed.
The new one, the one we talked about.
This is something we discussed on our live stream as well. So once again, interested parties may check the video on our YouTube channel or whatever, and or Facebook. And I just wanted to show you something that let me see. So I wanted to, they are sort of balanced pretty well together, and they do not need to be balanced, because well, you can use it even if it's a bit of balance, but because it's Dimitris, they are balanced perfectly. So yeah, this is band sticks. Well, we are talking about bands today, not the first time. I had these patterns, and now these band sticks. I'm not sure you can even call them sticks, because well, it's band half circles. But so I got this stuff. I don't think I will be able to use them anytime soon, just because well, I do not make any books as of recently. But yeah, so got some stuff, and we'll see how it goes.
I hope you'll have a workshop soon, and then you'll start doing something.
Yeah, me too.
Perhaps an assistant or two, lots of free time, you know.
So much stuff to to accomplish, to realize. So Friedrich, did you find the name?
Yeah, I put it in our chat here. Annegret Frauenlob is her name, and
Okay.
she did a printmaker's top 10 5 times by now, I think. But I'm not like on her page. I can't find whether it's like it's also a subscription box. I think maybe, but if I remember correctly, I've heard from a couple of artists that they have like subscription systems, usually from small collectives. So maybe 5 artists or 10 artists, or just like a small group of artists who ask different artists each year or so for publication to give something to the lot. And
I know quite a few examples of that in the sphere of zines, like
yeah, and there
artist printed ephemera, but certainly not in artist prints, as in the case of Ellen. This is you should see how they look at a set. They are exquisite. It's very impressive how she managed to find her niche.
So yeah,
I think
I broke the stream for a moment, but because I opened chat and everything shifted, but whatever. And also yeah, I will pass the word to Friedrich for a short finishing.
We've had our 90 minutes.
Yeah, you have something to do.
Well, you know the format. Okay.
It's the last opportunity for us,
yeah.
I guess, to discuss the news this year, because the next week we have our holiday special, and I don't think we'll discuss any news then. And in 2 weeks I will be in New York, so and I have some bookish plans there, but I don't think I will be streaming anything. So these are probably 2 last live streams for this year, and we already have some plans for January, and we already have a guest probably scheduled for the second week of January, and some prospects for the upcoming for the later weeks, but whatever, we'll announce it a bit later. I also wanted to mention that I posted earlier that iBookBinding will stop accepting any orders before the holiday season on the 15th of December, because, well, we're flying to New York on the 20th of December, and I need to have time to fulfill the orders that are coming. But as I had a couple of really huge wholesale orders to fulfill before that moment coming up recently, I'll probably cut it short, and maybe we'll finish accepting orders later this week on the 10th of December, or maybe even a bit earlier. We'll see how it goes, and it's just and Friedrich.
Yes. So to keep up my theme of how we order knowledge, and to an extent how we preserve knowledge, during this year there was a font got released called the Extender Books Hand, which is a digital font based on the font used, or the handwritten writing rather, from I think at least Old English or Gaelic manuscript. It's yeah, here you have the year 1072. And it's a beautiful font. There are also initial letters and one style of the facsimile style, which is the basically original style of writing. Then there are some alternate letters to make it more readable for us today. Then there is a set of runes to get back to the topic of runes.
Nice.
And then the initials. It's totally free. You can check it out. And I just love it. And I just wanted to show it. And I think it's a great and interesting way to preserve these old techniques. And there are also like some ligatures for the word amen and extender stuff like this.
It's Exeter, I think.
Or Exeter, yeah.
Actually, in this very letter that we discussed today, Tolkien mentions a riddle from this book. It's one of the 4 main books containing Old English poetry. So almost a third of all Old English poetry comes from this tome, and some of the rudest riddles too.
So, and then the next thing,
I like how everything fits together in today's live stream, with the exception of the stuff I was talking about.
Just some housekeeping in the middle.
Yeah.
And then we had a news story I shared earlier this year about digitizing manuscripts or manuscript rolls, which is a special challenge. And from this, I think I didn't link it back then because I usually don't do this. There's a digital project from this digitization project where you can access basically each different point of the scroll and see what the text says here in Latin, the original, and then below is a English translation. And yeah, you can go through the whole roll. It's a genealogy, and it gets like here's like, oh, and at this point we can go to the text. Here Laodia, which is now called England, is divided into 7 kingdoms. It's from the time of the War of the Roses. And so then you have like all the kings that ruled these. And I think it's a nice way of preserving the original content, the handwritten version, but also granting access to people who maybe are unable to read the old inscriptions or like to decipher them. And then you have the written text in Latin. And for those people who can't translate Latin, you have an English translation. And with some of them, you also have notes where you can hover above a certain word, like a name or so, which gives further context on the person. I just dabbled around this a little bit today. On the website itself, there are also notes on the historical context in which this role was made. Like, is there like some part of propaganda and stuff like this in it? So really research about this scroll. And this reminded me of something that I did on the side just for personal interest. I was looking up medieval world maps. And this is an older project. And it shows, it's sadly completely in German, but I guess you can, text parts, you might be, well, maybe not. But
sorry to interrupt. What was the name of this font you talked about?
Oh, I'll post a link.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Because I posted the link for the Canterbury role, but yeah, sorry.
And so let me just like this, the whole map. It's the Ebsdorfer
Mappa
map,
Mundi.
Mappa Mundi.
Mhm.
And one part of it is missing. I don't know if it was completely missing or if it wasn't finished or burned and then an empty piece was reattached. I did this a couple of months ago, so but I just remembered by researching this scroll that there is just a different or a similar approach rather, so that you can select different sections of the text which you might be unable to decipher, and in this case you get a German translation right off the bat. But I think, yeah, it's just like you have this, basically it's a similar concept of digitizing the original object, and then via a digital overlay you can understand the different contents of it. Like, okay, we can zoom in here. It's a little bit rough using this page. I think the other one works better.
And it's very slow. Even on my super fast laptop, it works really
yeah,
slow.
yeah. But yeah, here are also like different stations of the Alexander the Great novelization, basically from the medieval times, which was a popular novel or story motive of a similar to, I think, King Arthur, just the heroic journeys of a king and his adventures and misadventures. And these are all shown here on this map. And yeah, it's in part or a world map of the understanding of the world at that time. Like here's Sicily, and it's at points really weird in which direction everything is like turned or how it is realized. Like
Did it take you forever to trace everything?
well, it does take a lot of time. Like was Ligurien, like I don't Lombardei, yeah, and then like here was Sparta, for instance. And I mean, of course, a lot of places are historical names of certain cities, and Scotland. So here's like Great Britain,
At
England.
the very end of the world.
Yeah. At the
Oh
very
yeah, and
bottom, I'd
also
say.
And what is that on the actual bottom below Christ's feet?
these are, let me do I get a notification? I might have to maybe these are like islands or towers, or I don't know. There was actually, when I first looked at it, there was a the winds. These are the winds. Probably.
I wanted to say that this is the ice wall, which is protected by NASA army, so that
Well,
nobody will
that's
find
I
out
guess
that
that's where
we're
the
living on a
text
flat
is.
Earth.
That's where the text is, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so that's like, oh, here's a cutout. Yeah, to me it's just really interesting because it gives these make those like projects like these make old documents, maps, scrolls. Probably if you would do something like this with a book or so, makes them accessible to a wider audience. Because you can see them in a digital format and don't have to go to the actual place where they are stored. And you don't have to rely on the skill of deciphering a handwritten script and speaking some old language. I mean, of course, in this case, you have to rely on the translators, that they translated everything correctly, and you have to put trust in them. But I guess that's what we also have to do in a lot of different cases, like with medicine and just science in general. From a certain degree upwards, we are just not really all capable of understanding every tidbit of information and of detail of a certain field. And I think this is, it's a pretty interesting concept. And by now I know about 2 projects, and maybe over time I'll find more. And maybe there's a case to be made to have like some place for a list that refers to these different projects with a similar approach.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it the Mappa Mundi that was destroyed in the Second World War, which makes it even more poignant? I think it only survives in color facsimiles and one black and white photograph. So preserving that is even makes it even more important.
Yeah, this could be. I think maybe, I don't know. There was, I think, also one Mappa Mundi which there was not only photographs made, but maybe some sort of a copy even. But like, I don't know for sure. It could be this one. I mean, this one already has some missing pieces. And it could be that this map, I mean, I can check real quick.
Anyway, it was nice of you to choose a couple of news from this past year to sort of finalize the year and to make a short roundup. And this was a strange year. I hope the next one will be much better. And
it's not over yet. It's not over yet.
Yeah.
Wait.
And just to add, yes, the map got destroyed in a bomb attack in 1943.
And thank you to all who stayed with us throughout our live stream. There were, I think, at least a couple of people who stayed throughout the stream, and Jocelyn Bergen has helped us with the dust jackets. So also there was Rafael Tascana in the beginning of the stream commenting. Very interesting, and I'm not sure if they stayed with us for that long, but anyway, thanks to everyone for watching, and we probably have a lot of interesting news in the upcoming weeks and maybe in January, and we'll see how it comes. And we will definitely continue posting videos and shorts and photos on our Instagram and YouTube and TikTok accounts, and so stay tuned. There is a lot of interesting stuff that has happened in the past weeks. I visited some interesting places, and there is still some material to share. Next week, join us for a holiday special, and it should be fun, I hope. And thank you, Friedrich, for joining us today. And we hope to see you again on one of or on several of our or many of our live streams next year. So that's it. I'll stop the stream and we'll just wait for a bit more while the stream drops. Jocelyn wrote great session. Thank you. Well, thank you for being with us, and hope to see